So for today's video, I'm going to discuss the kind of visceral reaction and pushback about the use of AI within writing, from the writing community itself. And I wanted to and I think the reason why I'm decided to make this video, because originally I was planning to do something else, is just because of the kind of intense reaction I've gotten just through the creation, as I've, created raised letters and marketed it. I've gotten some pretty kind of strong pushback about it within the writing community. And so I felt like it's, timely to make this video. So this is just really off the cuff discussion that I'm having. So I'm just kind of having it casually. We've got a beer here. And yeah, that's the kind of video this is. So just be warned. So let me try to organize my thoughts on this. So first, I wanted to discuss or just talk about what kind of reactions there are, right? And I would kind of characterize the reactions. There's this sort of like large subset of writers who are basically against the use of AI at all. And for nothing, right? Not for editing, not for spell check, whatever. They don't want to use it at all. And then, there's people that are kind of like on the fence about it, or they don't know, like, should I use it or should I not use it? And then there's people that are just like full on, write my whole novel for me. And for this discussion, I'm talking about the first group, basically the group that is, kind of completely against the use of it at all. And they've become pretty, vocal, right? There's been cases where writers have had, pretty significant book deals pulled because there was even the suspected use of AI within their manuscript. Not even proven, just suspected. And this sort of kind of pitchforky crowd is basically out in arms over anything that might kind of potentially, anything that kind of might potentially veer in that direction. And so, yeah, and so then I've gotten some of these comments and, kind of pushback in my marketing. So, for example, I've had people tell me like in the comments, they're like, oh, you're not worth the dirt you stand on, which is kind of funny. Just a lot of people just crashing out, right? And so I wanted to just talk about this. And so first I want to talk about like why the reasons they give for their crash out. And then I want to talk about like, I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper, and basically I believe, in my opinion, the reasons they're giving are a little bit performative, and the real reason is a little bit deeper. Okay, so with that being said, let's talk about the reasons that they typically give. So the first reason you'll often hear given is that, you should use your brain. You should use your own brain. It should be coming from you. It should be your own work. And, if that's not the case, then you shouldn't bother writing. And there's a little bit of nuance here, so I'll unpack this later. But just like, that's kind of one of the reasons that are given. Another reason that is often given is it's bad for the environment. You're wasting water, etc. Other reasons is that this is like, writing should be a uniquely human endeavor and something that's unique to the human experience. And then, not something that should be, people should be leveraging AI for, in any reason. So yeah, that's basically, just kind of steel manning the various arguments you might have against it. And I'll just read to you some of the comments I get. So for example, AI shouldn't write your novel. That's it. That's all you need to state. If you need help to write a better novel, perhaps you shouldn't be a writer at all. You're not worth the dirt you stand on. Like no one will remember you after you die. So, yeah, some people get a little bit crazy. Radical idea: use your brain to write. Better for your brain health, better for your literary integrity, and better for the planet. Okay, so basically there's like a lot of people just really pushing back on this. And I think if I could kind of like kind of generalize their arguments into one thing. I would say that the crux of the argument is that you should write it, right, and it should all come from you. And then I've asked them, or I followed up with them, was like, because this is specifically about editing, not about writing it. And then the same thing, they're like, hey, this shouldn't be, it should still come from you. You should use your own brain to do the editing. And I think this is actually somewhat disingenuous on its face, because to be frank, any author, or almost every author you've read or admire has almost every author you've read or admire has had help to write their novel in the form of development editors, copy editors, proofreaders, and beta readers. And to be honest, most don't really have the budget or an agent to afford the full edit stack that some like the authors that actually do read and enjoy have access to. And you wouldn't say like, oh, you shouldn't, you should, like, if you use all those things, you're not a real writer, or you should use your brain or whatever, right? And so to me, like, kind of grabbing your pitchfork and going after anyone who uses AI in their creative process, even for editing, I think is a little bit disingenuous, because just logically speaking, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I think it's a necessary process to actually write a book, right? It's a massive undertaking. It can be very difficult to kind of spot issues. And so if we can introduce a tool that can really help you with that process, I don't see anything wrong with that. And so basically that's one of the, the kind of the general reason is that the general argument is that people often give is that, like any use of outside resources outside of your own brain is nonsense, and it should just come from you. And I'm just pushing back on that and saying like, hey, like the way authors write have written for I don't know how long, many years. They've all most of them have leveraged help to complete their draft and complete their novel or whatever they're writing, manuscript. And so I don't see anything wrong with if that help comes from a human or if the help comes from an LLM. Okay, so that aside, now let's talk about some of the other arguments. So other arguments is that these AIs have been trained on human text without their permission. It's plagiarism, etc. And I want to discuss this because it is an important. There is some important nuance here. So, like, if you are like asking an AI to generate your novel for you, and you explicitly tell it like, hey, I want my novel to sound exactly like this writer, and in fact generate prose for me from their latest novel, and I'm going to use that in my novel. Now, yeah, that's plagiarism, right? And honestly, you don't need AI to do that, right? You could have gone to their book and just copied it yourself. AI is just making it a little bit faster, but to be honest, the real kind of issue is the writer, not the AI, right? The writer is choosing to plagiarize, and I honestly think that's on you. That has nothing to do with the AI. AI is just a tool. You could have copy pasted, and I don't see any of these people with their pitchforks out, chasing after the copy paste command, because it helps plagiarize. And now on the other side of like, oh, well, it's still learning from all of these resources without their express permission. But again, this is like what all humans do, right? If you're widely read and you've read a lot of books, to be honest, like most of your thoughts are plagiarized, right? This is a Mark Twain quote, and I think it's just as true then. It's just as true today as it was then. You're either borrowing from what someone else did, or you're taking two ideas that other people had and combining them into something unique. But the point is that you're building on top of what you've learned, and AI just does this a little bit, quite a bit faster than you. But if humans can do it, I don't see what's wrong with AI doing it either. Especially when it's like not being directly used, but it's being used like filtered through an editing tool and not actually just using to generate your text. Okay, so I've kind of like talked about the different arguments that oftentimes the pitchforkers will throw out there. And one final argument that I kind of forgot to touch upon was the environmental impact. So they're going to talk about, you're destroying the environment, all these data centers. AI uses, just a fraction, just a few percentage points of the total electricity. So it's not just AI, but data centers in general use just like a few percentage points of our total electricity output in the U.S. And so it's not really that, like, it will be an issue, but that's called economic development. And I think, that will build power to meet that demand. On the water front, I think AI uses about 0.3% of the water in the U.S. And just to put that in perspective, golf courses use about 0.5. So, before you go and grab your pitchfork and come running after the data centers, where were you? Where are you? Where is that same outrage with golf courses, right? Or any of other use cases or any other uses that humans use our natural resources for. To me, I think this is just a kind of, again, not really well thought out and kind of a disingenuous argument about AI. Now, this doesn't mean to say I'm against any kind of regulation or I'm against, smart environmental reviews and making sure that, as we scale this thing, we scale in a way that's sustainable. But I in just my reading of the people who are kind of having these performative reactions against AI at all, I don't think they care about that. They just want a complete moratorium on it. So these are not people that are like, these aren't people you can have a rational discussion with or a rational conversation with. So yeah, that's how I see it. And so let me talk about now. And basically my opinion is like all these arguments they're throwing up, I don't think they actually believe these arguments, or if they do, it's it's kind of a naive belief. But my point was, like they're angry that you're using some outside source to help you write your book. Authors have done that, forever. And they're not angry at authors for doing that when they use outside sources. That's not, that's human. So, so on that argument, I don't think they're really genuinely as angry as they are because of that. And now other cases, for example, authors are upset, with the argument about, the environment. Again, they didn't have the same, like hatred or strong reaction for other kind of even more superfluous things, such as golfing, that use even more resources. All right. So, in my opinion, what's really driving the anger has nothing to do with those things. It actually has to do with something a little bit deeper. And that is that I think a lot of writers view this space as kind of sacred to them. They have chosen to go into this very difficult and creative endeavor to write a novel, write a short story, or write a poem. And they spent years, honing their craft and learning how to do it, learning how to tell a story effectively, and all of those things. And now you have essentially what AI kind of offers is people who didn't spend that time, people who who they probably dislike a lot, giving them access to their space, right? So, like if just any old SDE can come out and generate a book, and now they're kind of stuck in this situation where it's like, hey, I spent my whole life learning how to do this, and being, and making less money than, maybe going for a traditional career in most cases. And now all of a sudden you guys think you can just come into our space. And so I think this is like a, understandable reaction. But the fact is the way I would describe this is I think that ship has sailed. I don't think there's like you've the bottle, it's been, the cork has been unplugged from the bottle, and I don't think there's any going back at this point. We can try and clutch our pearls. We can try to like fight it as much as we want. And I think it's honestly inevitable that AI is going to be used in the writing process. It's just, yeah. And I have a lot of reasons for that, but it's sort of like if you were writing with, ink and a quill and paper, right? And all of a sudden the printing press came out and you were trying to fight the printing press. And even though you had a lot of good arguments, the fact is it's just so much faster, so much better at getting your prose out there, getting your manuscript out there. That's what's going to happen. It's economically, you're fighting an ocean with a teacup. And I think that's what's going on here. That's the situation here. And so the way I think about it is like, if we are, AI is here, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere, to be honest. And so let's come up with a way that we can use it ethically and in a way that actually helps us as writers, and as a tool for good, right? As opposed to as a tool for evil, right? If you think about it, these are all just tools, and they can be used for good and they can be used for evil. And that's kind of one of the fundamental kind of design principles that I built with Raised Letters, is that I really have built it and am building it with writers in mind who have valued their integrity as authors. So there's a lot of work that goes into it to make sure that, like, hey, if you're doing things that are using an LLM for whatever reason, we actually run checks to make sure the LLM didn't change your text unexpectedly. If you're we put a lot of work into, like, if you're asking for your writing buddy for some research, or you're asking like, hey, this passage doesn't quite feel right, do you have any suggestions? It's not going to just give you a rewrite. It's going to give you thoughtful suggestions. And just like the whole app is really designed around this principle. And that's essentially what that's kind of essentially like, how we're thinking about it is, look, a lot of the surface arguments that people have against it just don't really I think they're a little bit performative, and I don't think those are what is actually driving the kind of visceral reaction and hatred of the use of AI. I think the use of AI, I think what's driving it is just this like kind of sinking and kind of feeling of like your space being invaded by people you probably don't like. And my argument, my point about that is and I get that, but it's not you can't stop it at this point. It's too convenient to use, and so people are going to use it. And so what we can do is actually build something that allows you to use it, but use it in a way that actually is for your benefit and not for any kind of your detriment. And then from there, it's just I think it's, honestly speaking, we're putting a little bit too much. We're putting a little bit too much like onus on AI and not on the authors themselves. So if there's authors out there that are just using AI to generate books to make money, you're gonna be able to spot those books, right? That's what we call the AI trash. It's like there's nothing interesting about those. There's nothing compelling about those books, and people see through it, and I think eventually the systems will come in place that kind of get rid of that spam. But if you're using it to kind of like help you figure out why, chapter 7 is not working, or, kind of help you find echoes in your manuscript, or help you find, cases where your pacing is off. I think that's totally fine, and it'll help more people become better writers. And I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing. And so, yeah, that's basically my thoughts on this. And I, like, before I kind of finish this video, the last thing I wanted to touch upon is like, what do we do about it? Because the thing is, you know, now if you go in traditional publishing, if you have any, if there's any kind of anyone suspecting you're using, even, you know, touching AI, that might cost you a book deal. And so I think that's a very, so I think that's a very precarious world to be in. You know, if you spent 2 years working on your first novel and you used AI to like polish up the last paragraph of your prologue or something like that, and then all of a sudden you're screwed out of a book deal. I don't think that's like, you know, a very safe space to be in. I don't like that. I don't think it's a safe space to be in. And I think, you know, you have some options, right? Your options are to don't just, you know, stay away from it at all. Make sure there's no use of AI in any part of the process of your book. Or you can sort of just shut out the noise, right? You have your own integrity as an author. You know if you're using it to generate prose or if you're using it to actually meaningfully help you in your editing process. Like, you know, like, I think every author, you know if you're doing this with integrity or if you're not. And I think that's on you, right? And if you believe you're, you know, kind of maintaining your integrity as an author, then I think you should just ignore you should ignore the pitchforks, right? Because I honestly believe they're disingenuous. I don't think they're being genuine at all. I think a lot of it is performative, and a lot of it is kind of like a group of people trying to push back an ocean, and what you're realizing is, you know what, I want to tell my story. Like, I don't have a bone in this fight. Like, I don't care. Like, I do care, but like I don't have a bone in the fight of the, you know, people that want to, you know, write on typewriters or what have you. And I actually don't really care about the AI side either. I just want to write my book. And this is a tool that's really helping me make progress on it. And so I'm just going to reach for whatever tools I need to get my book out there. And as long as I do it with integrity and as long as I can sleep at night, that's the real really matters. And so that's kind of my opinion about this. And that's how I feel about this, you know, the kind of pushback within the writing community. And so thanks for listening.